Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to my podcast that I currently do not have a name for. I'm going to be spending time talking about open source, various facets of open source, how to contribute, how to know that a project is open source, what exactly defines as open source, and any topic I can think about as we continue. So basically, trending topics. This is a podcast about open source stuff. So yeah, I'll try my best to just educate you or just talk, and I can be like the voice in your background that is rambling while you do other things. So I'm your host. My name is Precious, and today we'll be talking. We'll start from the beginning, right? Let's understand Let's understand the premise of this podcast from the beginning. So we'll talk about what open source is, the what, the how, and why of open source. Let's go. All right. So from the beginning, what is open source, right? So what exactly is it? So open source refers to a type of software whose source code is freely available to the public, right? It means that anyone can view, use, modify, and distribute the code. I feel like this is actually like one of the official, in quotes, definitions of open source, but I feel like it should be revised, mostly because as time has gone on, we've figured out that there are no code ways to contribute to open source, right? There are obviously no code facets of open source like design, documentation, program management, all that sort of thing. But the whole principle still stands, where we know that everybody's welcome here. You can view the processes, and it advocates for transparency, collaboration, communication, right? So you can use, you can modify, and then you can share like stuff to as many people as you like. So personally I like to define open source, right? It's like software for all, made by all, sort of like democracy, where you have like maintainers acting as your lawmakers, where they merge, review, and approve your pull requests, that sort of thing. So as we go on, you probably start to understand some of these buzzwords, like what's a pull request, what's a review, what's a merge, that sort of thing. But yeah, let's just continue. So it's kind of like a place where developers worldwide can come together to build and improve software collectively. So for me, I like to talk about, like, I got into open source officially last year, and so far it's been such an interesting experience for me, right? I got into open source through outreach. I started contributing to Chaos. Chaos is a Linux Foundation project that stands for Community Health and Open Source Sustainability. So, and then I just mentioned Linux. Linux is like the OG of open source, right? It's mostly what most open source projects are actually even built onto. It was kind of like one of the foundations for open source, and it's been an interesting few years since then. So, so like the essential difference between open source projects and closed source projects is just, one is easily accessible, anybody can view it, anybody can share it, as opposed to the ones where you cannot tell how the code is written or how the processes are run, or how, like, you don't have any say in how it's built if you are not like a member of that company or that organization, right? So it's not as accessible. There are limits who can use or modify the software. So open source is the one that encourages transparency, collaboration, innovation, community, all that sort of stuff. So it's really, really nice, and it gives people access to projects that they may not ordinarily have been able to build. I really like how it reduces like the entry level bar, like, for people to be able to come in and contribute to awesome stuff. So how does open source work? So it's not just code ish. There are different kinds of licenses that work with open source, right? So there's the Apache license, there's Creative Commons, there's the Mozilla Public license, there's BSD license, and then there is the MIT license. So I had to look for a very simple way to describe this, and then I went to ChatGPT, and I told you just like explain it for me in a very simple way. So I like this definition, so that's what I'm going to be using. So for the MIT, that's like the super open license. It lets people know that, oh, you can do almost anything you want with my project or my product. Have fun, be nice, just make sure people know that I made the original, right? And then for something like DPL, that's like the teamwork license. It says, oh, you can use my project, you can change things if you want, but if you share it with others, you have to let them change it too, right? It's like a big teamwork party. And then for Creative Commons, that's like the sharing is caring license. So it's like, again, this project is a creative project. Use it, share it. You can even make your own version, but just make sure to give credit and then share like. And then for the Apache, it's like let's build together license. So that's feel free to use my project however you want, even in your own projects. Just promise not to be mean and share your improvements with others. That's really nice. So you see, it's like this. Hi everyone, welcome to my party. And then there is a Mozilla public license, which is like you can do almost anything with my project, even if you want to use it on your own big projects. But if you make changes, you need to share them, just like good friends sharing ideas. And then for the BSD, that's like the easygoing license. It's like, okay, use my project freely, change it, share it, do whatever. Just let people know that I made it, okay? So yeah, that's like a very quick rundown of the various licenses in open source. And depending on what license your project has, then it has different ways that it can be available to the public, or it can be available to changes. So let's see. So an example of an open source project, I mentioned Linux sometime earlier, and it's probably one of the best examples to use because it's one of the oldest open source projects. It's an operating system, right? And from Linux, Android is built. I think even Git is also built off of Linux, and Git is one of the it's a version control system. So version control systems are essentially just things that keep track of how changes happen in a document or a project or whatever. So Linux is kind of like the foundation of a lot of really important software that is running these days, and it's open source, which is really cool. So people actually can build off of it, and some people actually build closed source software out of Linux. So people are open to making changes, adapting it to build their own projects, and it's just really, really cool because it's accessible, right? It has this really big impact that it's making on the whole world, and anybody has access to it. I just really think it's nice, and like it's like a global thing. So people from different parts of the world have made contributions to Linux. Different realities have been able to put in their experience levels into making sure that, oh, this thing is strong, it's secure, it's nice, it works well, and we can adapt it into our own projects. So let's talk about the why. Why should anybody talk about open source? Why should you care? Well, for one, it's diverse. It gives people access, right? So if maybe I wanted to contribute to something like Facebook, I would need to probably be an employee, or I don't know, have some kind of affiliation. That's a part of Facebook that is not open source. But because something like Linux is open source, it means I can contribute to it and have a say in how the software works without having to like obviously be hired or to pass or to go through so many interview stages, that sort of thing. So I think it's really nice. I like that the barrier of entry is low. I like that it's transparent, so in real time people can look through why certain decisions are made, why a code is like taken above another person's code, or why a code is rejected. There's reasons. Different people can put in their own say and say, oh well, you could have better written this code this way, or you could have written this contribution this way, or we can make this decision for this demographic that way, and everybody kind of like has a say. So different people can impute their own realities, talk about what it's like from their own demographic, and it's like a huge community, right? I think that's another reason why I like open source. There's also community for people to be able to learn, especially for people that are beginning. You have access to people that are more experienced, and they can easily help you out, show you the ropes, and you learn from previous experiences that they have. So yeah, I really hope that I was spending a few minutes talking And I really love that I'm able to explain what open source is, how it sort of works, and why it should be why it's important for people to actually pay attention to it. I like that it's transparent. I like that it makes people have like a community. I like that it's collaborative. Another reason is that it gives people that it helps people make impacts in a global scale, right? So, and then mostly because for the most part, I think until recently, most times open source projects were voluntary. So since most projects or most products that are important to people are run on open source projects, it's really really cool that people can come and contribute their time and help make impact or help out people.